over water. She introduced my mind to me, beginning at the final moment of my birth. She flew over water, reflected on a glassy sea, beginning near the center of the earth. All right, hello there, thrill seekers. I don't know if you can see him behind me, but there's Ziggy. Yeah, you can just see his butt. I tried to get him to come around to be in the shot, but he won't do it. All right, that was a song called Four Faces of the Clock, and it's from, oh, there he goes. It's from a Dementia 13 album called Flat Earth Society, if you want to go find it. But I wanted to talk to you about a question I got, and as you know, since before your sun burned hot in space and before your race was born, I have awaited a question. And this is the question. Thank you for all your books and especially the audio versions. That's nice. I tried to find out if this topic was already discussed. Maybe I missed where it was. I understand how, without a teacher, Zen practice is not the same as with a teacher. What I am curious about is how your practice goes when no more teacher is around. The same situation is for all Zen teachers at some point. They no longer have their teacher around. I have some ideas, but I would appreciate your answer if it's a suitable topic for a video. Thank you, with Gasho from Anna. All right, Anna, let me see if I can answer your question, because it's a question I'm kind of familiar with, and I don't think I've addressed this particular aspect of studying without a teacher. Oh, look, there's a mosquito right there waiting to eat me. Okay. So, at some point, everybody who has a teacher loses their teacher. I mean, I don't know if this is everybody, but pretty much, it's pretty much most people. So, in my case, my teacher was Gudo Wafu Nishijima, and he died in January of 2014. And I had not actually heard from him for a few years by then. I'm not sure when the last time I heard from Nishijima Roshi was. Might have been 2012 or so. I don't really know. But I hadn't heard from him for a while. What I heard was that he'd had some kind of a fall, and he was in his 80s. He might have been 90 by then. I'm not really sure. Was he? Anyway, he was very old. And after this fall and him being hospitalized for a time after it, his daughter had stepped in and insisted that she come and live with him. Up until that point, he had been living on his own in an apartment in Tokyo. It was a little tiny, I guess you'd call it a studio apartment. I don't think it even had a proper bedroom. It had like 2 rooms and a kitchen, and the two rooms were almost one room. They were sort of one room with a little divider between them. And he had some kind of a caretaker who would come, I don't know how often, a few times a week. I don't think she came every day, just to check on him and make sure he was doing all right. She wasn't cleaning or cooking for him, as far as I know. He was still doing all that himself. And he just basically stayed in that apartment and worked on his books and things. He wasn't teaching actively anymore, except on very rare occasions. He wasn't leading retreats or anything. And during this time, rumors were all over the internet that he was completely lost his mind and senile and couldn't, was a drooling mess and had no idea what was going on. Here's a video I shot during that time.
Many materialists insist that matter is real, but it is delusion. Matter is the kind of sense perception, and reality is different from such kind of sense perception.
So as you can see, he was pretty functional, and as far as I know from the emails I got from him, he was pretty functional up until he had that accident. There are some people out there, there's one in particular who has a vested interest in pushing this narrative that Nishijima Roshi was crazy. long before he died because it suits him, and he pushes that around the internet. So maybe you've seen it, but it's crap. It's not true. But it's possible that after this fall, his ability to communicate and something must have been compromised. He didn't talk to me anymore. So I kind of lost my teacher. Let's say it was 2012, because I don't really know for sure. That was quite a loss. I didn't have my teacher to bounce things off of anymore. I still could communicate with my first Zen teacher, who was Tim McCarthy, but he wasn't my ordaining teacher, and so it wasn't quite the same. And one interesting thing about Tim is he's kind of funny. He doesn't. He didn't always answer. He still doesn't always answer every email or communication I send his way. And he seems to be kind of selective about it. But there comes a point where a teacher kind of pushes you out of the nest, as it were, like a baby bird getting pushed out of the mother bird's nest. And that point would probably be when Dharma transmission happens. So Dharma transmission is, among other things, permission to teach independently of your teacher. That's what the tradition says. So you're not supposed to teach Buddhism on your own without your teacher being involved in the teaching until you've got Dharma transmission. Once you got Dharma transmission, then you're kind of on your own, and that would normally be when your teacher kind of steps away. And Nishijima Roshi didn't adhere to that in a really strict way, but he became different after he gave me Dharma transmission. He didn't really want to be, father figure anymore. You're just kind of, father figure. I mean, this brings up a kind of interesting point. What's your father after you grow up and leave the house and start living on your own, or your mother? It becomes a different sort of relationship, and that's kind of what happened with Nishijima Roshi. He was no longer kind of doing that parental role, yet he was still my teacher, so he was still there, so I could still talk to him and stuff. I once talked to an older Dharma teacher who I know about her experience of this, and she told me a story that she'd had some kind of question for her teacher sometime after he'd given her Dharma transmission, and I can't remember what the question was. It probably doesn't matter that much, but some question about what to do, what should I do in this situation? And she went to him because he was still around, and he basically told her, hey, I gave you Dharma transmission. That means you have to figure that one out. So that's kind of the deal. Your teacher is no longer functioning in the same capacity. It might be relatively comparable to what a parent does after the child has grown up. You're not expected to sort of nursemaid your child after he or she is already gone to college and everything. That would be ridiculous, and people do that and things get weird. I actually, there's a weird light on my face, sorry. I actually know a situation that's like that, and it is really weird because the parent is insisting on sort of continuing to nursemaid the child well into his adult years, and it's not good. And I think that's what Dharma teachers are like too. After you've gotten a certain way along the path, the teacher can still have conversations with you and can still be something in your life, but it's not the same. Then there comes a time when the teacher is just no longer around. As I started to say earlier in this video that this happens to everybody, it doesn't necessarily happen. It might happen that the student is older than the teacher, or that they both live the same amount of time, but generally speaking, your teacher is going to be older than you, and generally speaking, your teacher is going to pass away before you do. That's just how life usually goes. And so that's what happened to me. Nishijima Roshi died, and then even my hope that he would someday recover and start talking again was gone. So I wasn't going to see him. So how do I practice without him? Well, I just continue to practice as I always do. I still do the same things that I always did. I sit zazen in the morning, I sit zazen in the evening. I do the things a teacher does now that I didn't do before he gave me Dharma transmission, which is run retreats and take on that role. And that's a way of learning, but I don't consider my learning to have stopped. That's one of the big mistakes I've seen people make in this business, is that once they have Dharma transmission, they figure they've got it all down and they don't need to learn anything else, and they become kind of a law unto themselves. And these are the really bad teachers. And fortunately, they're the minority, but they are out there. I would count that same guy that I was talking about who has a vested interest in keeping the idea alive that Nishijima Roshi was crazy long before he died as one of those. So a bad teacher is somebody who just figures they've got it all. They've learned everything they can know, and that's it. They're going to stop progressing. And that would be a huge mistake, because you never stop. There's always something else. There's always some deeper level to go with this stuff. I think it sounds cheesy, but I suppose I would have to say that in my case, I'm just learning from life. I'm trying to take the lessons I've learned under my teacher and apply them to life itself. And I do that by allowing life to teach me things. And I do that also by allowing people to teach me things. I find that people who come to me to learn about Zazen are often teaching me about Zazen secretly. And there's another little aspect, that teaching itself is a kind of way of learning, because you have to explain yourself, and having to explain yourself kind of helps you figure out what you've learned. And that's another part of it. I think that's one of the reasons Nishijima Roshi kind of pushed me into teaching, because he'd had the experience himself of learning by teaching, and he gave that to me. He gave me an opportunity to do that. So, I try to learn from everyone I can. I read the scriptures, the sutras, the old sutras. I read newer sutras, things that people are writing contemporarily, but I find that I prefer the ancient teachers to the modern ones in almost every case. And I learn from people, and I learn from observing myself and observing others, because ultimately what you're doing in this practice is observing yourself, and your teacher's job is to help you learn how to do that. But once you've learned how to do that, then the thing you can learn from the most is yourself. That's where you actually benefit the most. But you need a teacher at the beginning, because none of us, and I really think this applies across the board to everybody, none of us really knows how to do that until we run into somebody who's actually done that themselves. There's a squirrel that just jumped into the tree above me, and now he's kind of almost hanging almost on top of me. There he is. Yeah, Ziggy saw it too. Yeah, you want to come get the squirrel? He's up here. He's up here. Hi, now he's looking at me. Hi. Hi, Squirrely. I don't have anything for you. He's making eye contact with me. That's funny. Okay, maybe that's a good place to finish up. I don't know if there's anything else to say, really. You just continue learning even without a teacher. And I don't know if I've given you any magic pill to figure out how to do that yourself, but maybe you can glean something from what I said. I don't know. Anyway, let's hope you can. If you want to donate to me saying more incomprehensible things online, oh, there's the squirrel again. You can donate to me using the link you're seeing below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. .info/donate. There you will find links to my PayPal and Patreon accounts. Those are my main and usually only ways of making a living, and I appreciate your support, but as always, you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. All right, Siggy's barking at the squirrel, so I'm going to go talk to him about that. We'll see you later. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Hey, Ziggy. Ziggy, what'd you think of that squirrel? Did you see him? You just heard the squirrel, right? You know the word squirrel, don't you? Okay, now you're looking over at the tree. You want to go chase the squirrel in the tree? Oh, you shouldn't chase the squirrel. He's just trying to get... I don't know what he's trying to get up that tree. There's nothing growing up there. All right, we'll talk to you later, Ziggy. Bye.
She flew over water. She introduced my mind to me, beginning at the final moment of my birth. She flew over water, reflected on a glassy sea, beginning near the center of the earth. Four faces of the clock, she said. Four faces of the clock, she said, she said. Four faces of the clock, she said. Four faces of the clock, she said, yeah. She flew over water, and now she's flying over me, but I can't seem to see the trail she leaves. She flies on the water, like a bird in an empty sky, like a flower blown upon the breeze. Four faces of the clock, she said. Four faces of the clock, she said. Four faces of the clock, she said. Four faces of the clock, she said, yeah. Picking at the bones and my eyes, she burns. Picking at the bones and my eyes, she burns. Picking at the bones and my eyes, she burns. She'll fly on the water, far away from any shore, far to where no other eye can see. She'll fly on the water, and she'll drop so gradually, when she drops into the foaming sea. Four faces of the clock, she said. Four faces of the clock, she said. Four faces of the clock, she said. Four faces of the clock, she said, yeah. Picking at the bone.